a doctrinal catechism, wherein diverse points of Catholic faith and practice assailed by modern heretics are sustained by an appeal to the Holy Scriptures, the testimony of the ancient fathers, and the dictates of reason on the basis of Schiffmacher's Catechism, by the Reverend Stephen Keenan. Third American edition, revised and corrected, conformably to the decrees of the Council of the Vatican. Published by publishers to the Holy Apostolic See. Approbations: a concise summary of arguments, authorities, and proofs, in support of the doctrines, institutions, and practices of the Catholic Church, is here presented in a very convenient form, as an additional antidote against the unceasing effusions of antagonist ignorance and misrepresentation. The believer will be hereby instructed and confirmed in his faith, and the sincere searcher after truth will here find a lucid path open to conduct him to its sanctuary, as it contains a well-reasoned defense of the Catholic faith, and clear and satisfactory solutions of the usual objections adduced by separatists. I deem that the study of it will be most useful to all Catholics. Question: did not the Church, at the time of Christ, and before that period, keep the day of rest from 5 o'clock till 5? Answer: yes. And yet Catholics keep it from 12 to 12 without any warrant of Scripture. Nay, they oppose the Scripture, from even unto even shall you celebrate your Sabbath. Question: when Catholics do profane work upon Saturday, or the seventh day of the week, do they follow the Scripture as their rule of faith? Do they find this permission clearly put down in the sacred volume? Answer: on the contrary, they have only the authority of tradition for this practice. In profaning Saturday, they violate one of God's commandments, which he has never clearly abrogated: remember thou keep holy the Sabbath day. Question: is the observance of Sunday, as the day of rest, a matter clearly laid down in Scripture? Answer: it certainly is not. And yet all Catholics consider the observance of this particular day as an essential obligation. To say, we observe the Sunday, because Christ rose from the dead on that day, is to say we act without warrant of Scripture. And we might as well say, that we should rest on Thursday, because Christ ascended to heaven on that day, and rested in reality from the work of redemption. Question: is it not said, is the book of Revelations, that St. John was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, that is, Sunday? And is not this scriptural proof that Sunday is the day to be observed in the new law? Answer: are we then to observe this particular day, merely because St. John had a revelation upon it? Must we observe, as a day of rest and holiness, any day upon which an apostle was in the Spirit? Question: but it is called the Lord's Day. Answer: and is not every day the Lord's Day? Does this text tell you not to work upon that day? Does it tell you that the obligation of keeping Saturday is done away with? Or that it was not the day of the resurrection or ascension which St. John here calls the Lord's Day? Question: is it not said in the Acts, and upon the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul preached unto them, ready to depart on the morrow? And is not this ancient scriptural authority for the observance of the first day of the week? Answer: but does this text abrogate the observance of Saturday the seventh day, or allow Catholics to do profane work on that day? Certainly not. They should then rest upon both days, if they hold the above text as any argument. The text in question does not say that the apostle preached, or that the people assembled every first day of the week, but merely on this particular day, for which a good reason is given, namely, that St. Paul was to depart next day. It is quite clear, however, that they met every Saturday. For the same Acts say, St. Paul preached in the synagogue every Sabbath, and exhorted the Jews and the Greeks. Besides, it is not wonderful that the disciples came together on this first day of the week, since, according to Acts 2, they continued daily in the temple breaking bread. Question: Does not St. Paul order the Galatians and Corinthians to make collections on the first day of the week? Answer: yes. But, again, this does not abolish the observance of Saturday. St. Paul does not say that the people would be at church on that day, that they were to keep that day, to the exclusion of Saturday, holy, or that these collections were to be made at church, but merely that every man should lay up by himself in store upon that day. Question: what do you conclude from all this? Answer: that Catholics have no scripture for the measure of their day of rest, that they abolish the observance of Saturday without warrant of scripture, that they substitute Sunday in its place without scriptural authority, consequently, that for all this, they have only traditional authority.